Welcome to the Brainiate Show, where we talk about all things Salesforce, sharing the coolest features, solutions, and best practices to turn you into a Salesforce rock star. Here's your host, former attorney turned Salesforce consultant and trainer, David Giller.
Thank you for joining us today. Today we are going to be talking about Einstein Analytics. I shouldn't even say we, because it's going to be Pete Lyons, Salesforce MVP, and he's going to be showing us some of the magic behind Einstein Analytics. This is, on the one hand, this is absolutely meant to be an interactive session. You guys should be able to ask questions. You can feel free to just put it in the chat. You can feel free to unmute yourselves, to do it verbally, like really whatever is comfortable for you. And at the same time, we don't want to throw Pete off whatever topic he's talking about too much. So with that, I'm going to say thank you again, all of you, for joining. Pete, it's all yours.
All right. My only comment to add to that is I tend to have difficulty looking at two screens simultaneously.
I'll call it out for you as far as the
so
chat. Don't worry about it. I'm the chat monitor for today.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Whatever is behind door number one. Trailhead. So first thing I want to point out is my obligatory bio slide, I guess we'll do that. This is my obligatory bio slide. My name is Pete Lyons. I'm a consultant with Huron Consulting Group. Prior to that, I was a baker. I'm a high school dropout and a college dropout. So if I can do it, you can do it. My Twitter handle and various links are down here. I'm also host of the Let's Play Salesforce YouTube channel with over 60 something odd videos, new release tutorial content, 95% focused on Einstein Analytics. I do new release coverage 2 months before features hit production. So expect to see some of those in the next couple of weeks. I'm also an MVP and an inaugural member of the Analytics Champions program, user group leader, and all around Salesforce fanboy. And when I'm not working on Einstein Analytics, I do a ton with flows and declarative automation. And we will be seeing a little bit of that as it applies to analytics tonight. So then what is Einstein Analytics? Einstein Analytics is an add-on product that sits on top of core Salesforce. It's based on the acquisition of a company called EdgeSpring back in 2014. And basically this brings BI-like functionality to Salesforce. And the reason I say BI-like is because I don't like to associate Einstein Analytics with a BI solution. Because if you think that this is just a great way to make that, we need to take some external data and some internal data and join them together so we can have a fancy PowerPoint to present to leadership once a quarter, well, you're doing it wrong. So to put that into context, I drive a Prius. And one nice thing about my Prius is it's actually got a pretty decent stereo, so I can back it up to my driveway. I can open up the trunk and all the doors and everything, and I can crank the music up on it. And because the engine shuts off when it's not in need, every 30 minutes or so, the engine will kick on for like 10 seconds, and I've got a great environmentally sound, loud stereo. So if you go out and buy Einstein Analytics to make a quarterly slide deck for leadership, you have just bought a Prius with the only purpose in mind to be the stereo for your backyard. And you're missing out on all the wonderful things that it can do. And if you try to compare it apples to apples with traditional BI, you're saying, well, how does it perform as a stereo? And not taking into consideration that it serves many other functions and that the quarterly slide deck for leadership is not its primary function. Another big distinction between Einstein Analytics and traditional BI is the intended audience. It's analytics for everyone. In the traditional BI world, as a sales rep, I need insights into how I'm performing. Well, I'm probably not going to get those. I might get some sort of distillation that rolls down the hill, but realistically, my sales leader might put in a request to IT that we need this dashboard built so that we can report and give our sales reps different information. They send a request to IT. 6 months later, we've all forgotten what that question was, but here's your report. And while the curation of data sets and the architecting of data sets is still a task that is IT is responsible for, the creation of dashboards, the exploration of data, the conversations that we have with data, this is in the hands of every end user and super users. So if you build reports in standard Salesforce, guess what? You're going to be building dashboards in Einstein Analytics. If you build custom report types and you architect out data models and you build automation to push data back and forth between different things, then you're probably going to be more on the data set side, more on the building and architecting of the back-end ETL processes. But this is not a tool where you have to put in a request to IT and wait 6 months for your dashboard. If the data set is ready, you just go make your dashboard. So why do I have Trailhead up? Well, there's never a bad reason to have Trailhead up, but specifically, this Accelerate Analytics with apps, this trail has a link to it for, because you can't just get into Einstein Analytics in any Trailhead org. You do need an analytics-enabled developer environment. And if you go to Accelerate Analytics with apps, and you scroll about halfway, 3/4 of the way down, we've got this nice handy link right here. And the reason that I don't just spam out the link is because they do actually change it from time to time. It used to be /WaveDE, and it's still got the legacy Wave spinner. I actually like the name Wave better, but they rebranded in 2017 to Einstein Analytics. And it's also important to disambiguate. There's a lot of Einstein offerings out there. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And specifically, I work with Einstein Analytics and its sibling product, Einstein Discovery, which was based on the acquisition of BeyondCore. And the two products were officially merged around about 1.5 years ago. And now we have the new Analytics Plus SKU. So if your analytics licenses are either Analytics Platform or Analytics Growth, you will just have Einstein Analytics. If you want to add predictive capabilities to that, you would need Analytics Plus, which will also increase your data cap from, I believe it's 10 billion rows now. They're calling it data billionaires. But yeah, this handy dandy link is going to give you access to an analytics enabled developer org. I've got about a dozen myself. They're certainly not in short supply. So let's hop right in. So this is the Analytic Studio. You can access it by just clicking on the waffle and selecting Analytic Studio. You will need a permission set license assigned to your user. If you're doing this in Trailhead, that'll be assigned automatically. Permissions are their whole own topic. We do have a very much admin land and user land kind of paradigm here. So you want to be very selective. Don't give people admin perms or they might break everything. So just be careful with that one. It's just like core Salesforce in that respect. There's also a number of different optional settings that you may or may not want to enable. It's a little more granular that I want to get into right now. I'm only on this screen because I had to tick a few of these boxes myself. But once we pick the Analytics Studio, that'll take us to this friendly landing page. Now it's going to show me some recent dashboards, and really what I want to show here is the Learning Center. So I gotta say, one of the most exciting and frustrating things when I was getting started in Einstein Analytics in November of 2015 was that there was absolutely no documentation. There is no content. It was evolving so quickly that you could take code from documentation, paste it exactly as it was, but because nobody was keeping up with it as quickly as it was changing, it wouldn't work. So it was very difficult to learn. And there was just this one guy, Andrew Price, at the time he was a sales engineer for Salesforce based out of Australia. And he had a couple of blog posts. And between that and the brown belt videos that you could get access to through the partner community produced by Anil Dindigal, who was one of the original EdgeSpring team members, that was really all you had to go off of. And it was shooting blind. And it's like, I had never written any code in my life whatsoever. And I had only been working with Salesforce for less than a year at that point. And, you know, I'm 36. And when I got into the ecosystem, I was 32. And we've got these brilliant kids fresh out of college. They're 10 years younger than me. And they're coding circles around me. And it was very, very frustrating. And a friend of mine went to Toronto and he got the Wave brown belt training, and he came back and he shows me what it can do. And at the time, I was in a nightmare of an org that decided it was a good idea to use 5 objects for money changing hands instead of record types. And that does create a bit of a reporting nightmare. And when he started showing me what he could do with analytics, I was like, this is amazing. It solves all my problems. This is exactly where I want to go. And he's like, oh yeah, and the code's real easy too. And I'm like, oh, but it's code. No, I'm putting it out of my mind. I taught myself how to build computers. I went from the kitchen to consulting. I'm not going to let this roadblock stand in my way. Nowadays, there's a whole lot less code involved, and there's a whole lot more content out there. It's more approachable than it's ever been. The Learning Center is built right into the app, and it actually, based off of the email address associated with your user, matches that up against Trailhead profiles to see how many badges you actually have. And it doesn't work because this is not, I'm not using the email address that's associated with my Trailhead account. But it'll actually give you recommended trails to go down. Now, if you do not see yourself as like the back end, like I'm going to write a bunch of code and build out all these data sets, then the ones that you want to look at are going to be data exploration and app building. If you have the Analytics Plus licenses and you do also want to add intelligence to your dashboards and figure out the what happened and the why it happened and all of that fancy stuff, I would check out the Add Intelligence. And if you want to get into the back end and start building stuff, which is super fun, then you're going to want to check out the data integration trails. But it's literally in the name. Trailhead is the beginning of a journey and not the entire path. So just be aware that that's not where your learning stops. That's just your foot in the door. Other things to check out would be the Einstein Analytics Learning Map and the Einstein Analytics Learning Adventure. So the learning map is a section of curated content where you basically say, this is what I'm trying to do, this is my skill level, and it will link you to all of the relevant content that you're going to need to take that journey beyond what just Trailhead can do for you. Now, additionally, Salesforce recognizes that they are not the only ones churning out content. And, you know, maybe there's this guy, Pete, on the internet who has this totally unsupported hacky workaround that might solve your problem. And they don't want to officially take ownership of that. But if it helps the customers, they want that information to be out there somewhere. So if we scroll down to these tiles down at the bottom, one of them is Meet the Trailblazers and Hear Their Stories. And from here, you can see links to all of this community curated content. So Ricky Hovgaard, Carl Brundage, some amazing, amazing builders that are sharing their knowledge through blogs and through videos. The information that you're looking for is literally at your fingertips as long as you know where to go for it. And fortunately now, it's literally built into the app. We just go to Analytic Studio and we select Learning Center. And again, this is still a very rapidly evolving product. So as we scroll down here, here's all of the relevant elements of the release notes that apply specifically to analytics. They literally hand it all to us. This is not 2015 anymore. They listen. So this is put together by Katie Augustus on the product team. She handles onboarding and enablement and all these sort of things. Her team built the Einstein Analytics Learning app, or Learning Adventure app. And they've just done a fantastic job of curating all of this. The Learning Adventure app, which I don't have handy, basically is dashboards that teach you how to build dashboards. And that includes some more advanced functionality, like when we get into the coding aspects of it. But the mission from the top down on the product team is, with each new release, we are moving toward a code-free world. And we will always have access to get to that code in the back end, but one by one, every release season, they're asking people like me, what are the #1 things that you're going into the code editor to actually achieve? And that's basically their hit list. And they're creating UI functionality for us to be able to do those things. So when I want someone to understand what Einstein Analytics is and how it works and just get their feet in the water, and this is something I do with every one of my clients, and if they're net new and we're looking to see if they want us to implement analytics, or even if they have analytics licenses or they're curious, it doesn't matter. I always start with the Sales Analytics app. Why would I spend hundreds of hours building something really cool if it already exists? I don't. And Salesforce's bread and butter is Sales Cloud. So standard opportunity pipeline management is something that they do extremely well. So what you're telling me is you have customers and you want insights into them either before or at the time of transaction. Well, then you need Sales Cloud. Now, do you need insights during or after? Okay, well, now you need Service Cloud. We have apps for both. So these apps are pre-built accelerators that contain a suite of dashboards with a U. They are suite dashboards also. And you can spin up as many different copies of this as you want. So if you have multiple different business units and the nuances are subtly different from business unit to business unit, everybody can have their own flavor of analytics. It's like the Baskin Robbins of dashboards. So the way that I would actually do that, and I've already done this because it does take about 20 minutes to run, I would just go create app, and an app in general is just a folder, but I would create the app from a template. And we have a massive catalog of apps. Most of them, a lot of them you won't actually be able to get to work in Trailhead. For example, there's multiple templates that are designed to run for CPQ. You need a special org to get CPQ, you need a special org to get analytics. So unless you can convince someone to turn on both in one spot for you, you're going to have a little bit of trouble testing out these templates with Trailhead, with a Trailhead org. But look, there's like 25 or 30 of these things. So whatever you want to do, they have these pre-built accelerators. Don't start from scratch. Always see if there's an accelerator that's going to get you, if not all the way there, at least partway there, because that's going to free up hours for doing the really cool, fancy stuff that was on your nice to have list, but didn't make it in because we didn't use an accelerator. So if I go to the sales analytics one, and there is a multi-org flavor too. So if you have multiple Salesforce instances that are all using standard opportunity pipeline management, we can feed them all in together into one fancy dashboard without writing a ton of code. So I'm going to click Sales Analytics. I'm going to go ahead and hit Create, and then I'm going to hit, it's going to show me a preview of some of the different dashboards that we're going to get, which is fine, but we're going to see those in a moment. So I would hit Continue. And now it's going to say, do I want to use the answers to my pre-existing one? No, I want to create a brand new one. And now it does a quick check of my org to see, how I'm configured. Are you using opportunity line items? Do you have leads? Are you using campaigns? Are you using collaborative forecasting? So the app is actually pretty intelligent in how it can customize itself to your org without any required input from the user at all. So now I would choose if I want a basic installation, which is just default answers to all questions, or do I want to customize it? So I'll show you some of the different customization options that we have. Basically, this guided wizard is going to ask me questions about my org, and then it's going to build the app to suit those needs. So it sees that I'm not using opportunity splits. Maybe I have products, but I don't really want to bring them in. Maybe I, turn it on a couple of years ago and I was like, oh, maybe this is going to work, and then it didn't. Maybe cases have absolutely nothing to do with my sales process. For example, I have a lot of clients that actually use cases to manage internal service requests for their employees, and they don't use cases for anything client facing. So in that case, they would want to uncheck cases and not include them. And each one of these different choices that you make is going to have an impact on the nature of the app that's installed. It's still all going to look the same at a glance. It'll be hard to tell what org you're in, but the fields that are available, the exact list of dashboards that are installed, that's going to, whether you see a map of the United States or a map of the entire world, that's all going to be based on how you answer these wizard questions. So it just starts asking you things like, hey, what field do you use to segment your customers? What field do you use for geography? And it's based on object to object. So we have one for account, then we have one for opportunity. We have one for products. And then here's one that's, now we get into one of the first big gotchas of Einstein Analytics. Because Einstein Analytics is external from your org, it has no idea about your org security. So you can basically click this drop down, all users see all data. Because the integration user logs in on your behalf, the integration user has view all data. It runs SOQL queries, it queries your data to bring it up into Analytics Cloud. And it is up to you to determine whether or not row-level security needs to be applied to users who log into analytics. For anyone who's concerned about, well, wait, what about the security and encryption of my data? Is it leaving Salesforce? No, it's all still hosted on Salesforce servers. We can see right at the top here, I've got Salesforce record IDs in my URL, and you're going to see those all throughout tonight's session. But it doesn't know your org security until you teach it your org security. Now, if you're just using standard role hierarchy, we can easily toggle that. We also have a concept called security predicate, which is basically a filter syntax that says if these conditions are met based on, I'm looking at fields on this user or fields in my data set, and if A lines up with B, then let them see the rows, otherwise hide them from them. And there's also a concept called sharing inheritance, which is relatively new. You specify the object that is your base grain. So if I've got accounts with opportunities, I would pick the opportunity object, and it will match up the opportunity ID column in your data set and say enforce security as if I was looking at opportunities. Now, mind you, if you pull in a field on account that's supposed to be hidden, they can see this opportunity, they can see the related account, but they're not supposed to see that field, well, guess what? They're going to see it. My general recommendation is when you're first getting started with analytics, assume that everyone will be able to see everything until you get your chops up on how to build out these security predicates, and just have that assumption that everything out there is going to be public, and just don't put anything confidential in there. I have never once found a benefit to, why would I ever want to put a social security number in an Einstein Analytics dashboard? There's no valid reason for that. So just watch out for HIPAA data, watch out for FERPA data, watch out for sales reps commission data. We certainly don't want the other team members seeing that. But if the data is the sort of thing that you're going to see on the quarterly slide deck anyway, then go ahead, put it into analytics. You can always, there's app level security, which is basically folder sharing, comparable to what you see with standard reports. Then there is the sharing inheritance, and the most robust is the security predicate. But if you do have sensitive data in Analytics Cloud, absolutely bulletproof that security before you roll it out to your users. And the one nice thing that we have is no license, no dashboard. So while you're developing, you can make sure that that data is going to remain secure just by not giving anybody licenses. We can also toggle record types, picking different additional fields. So now based on any of these objects, well, hey, you asked me all these questions, but none of them had to do with all of the 55 million custom fields that we built on Opportunity for XYZ reason that no one remembers. I want to bring all of those in too. This is where we have that generic, hey, it's all of the other fields that we just didn't talk about yet. This is what we can bring in. So we go, looks good, next. And then you get to see Astro dancing through a dark woods, which is not ominous or creepy at all. They've got him just dancing through a dark wooded area. I almost want to go back just so you guys can see the animation. But you get up, you go get a cup of coffee, you stretch your legs, come back, and it's ready. Takes for manageable data volumes, anything under, like, if you've got like less than 500,000 accounts and less than 1 million opportunities, 10-15 minutes tops. And then what we get is Sales Analytics Home. So now a couple of ways I can get here. I can actually click on the dashboard itself, or I can navigate to the app itself and I can hit Run App. Also, if on my first iteration, like every first iteration, I realized, oh, maybe I goofed. I forgot that field. Maybe I want to add a new one. I can always reconfigure the app and it will take me back to the wizard, but it will prompt me with this warning that any customizations that you make, they're going to be undone, because it basically bombs out the app and recreates it every time. So the order of progression you want to do is first do anything that you can do with the wizard, then do any backend customizations that you need to do that are going to change around your data set, then go in and start making dashboard level modifications. But once we're at this Sales Analytics Home, not only is this a dashboard, but this is also our table of contents. So this gives me a very quick heads up about how my organization is performing. So I can see each one of these bars represents a different month in the last year and a half or so. It'll get wider depending on how much data you have in the org. We've got color-coded indicators to see performance versus prior period. So we can see we're up 130% since last year. And then we can see we've actually, our average deal amount has gone down. So even though we're closing 130% of what we closed last year, since our average deal size has gone down, this would indicate that we're doing a lot more smaller deals instead of a fewer number of larger deals. We can also see how we're progressing towards our target goals, and all of this stuff can be very easily customized. Now, another huge differentiator about Einstein Analytics is that it allows us to have conversations with our data. It's not just, this is why I say don't put it on a PowerPoint, because you can't interact with a PowerPoint. You can't have a conversation with your team around the PowerPoint. You're doing that in your inbox, not with the PowerPoint. So anybody who argues that PowerPoint is collaborative, no, Outlook is collaborative. But right from here, hey, I've got a -22 right here. Maybe I want to know what the problem is that is causing this red number, because I just don't want to see red on my dashboards at all. So I'm going to @mention David, and I'm going to say, what's with the red number? I'm going to attach a screenshot of that too. And this is going to fire off a notification. David's going to get this app mentioned. This is actually built off of the Chatter APIs and that whole framework. So this will show up in his Chatter feed. He will get, and if I've applied any filters to that dashboard, he'll get a link that will bring him back to the filtered version, so that in my message, I don't also have to say, first I click here, then I click here, then I click here, then I click here, then I waited until Tuesday, and then it looked like this. You know, because when he logs into the dashboard, he doesn't see a red number. He'll actually be able to get exactly back to where I was. And additionally, we can preserve the history of these annotations without having them spam up our dashboard by simply marking them as resolved when we're done with them. And then we can view all of our different annotations related to the dashboard, and we can see how many are active and how many are resolved.
By the way,
So then,
my response.
Go ahead.
You can see my response. I responded there when you open up the Chatter feed. Yeah.
There we go. Take a look at it ASAP. Okay, we're going to mark that guy as resolved. There's a little bit of lag to it, but that will actually show up in the notifications up top. So now that I've got my annotations resolved there, so this dashboard is also effectively our table of contents, and very similar to the learning app, it's segmenting out our dashboards by really like what we're trying to get to. If at any time we have no idea what these metrics mean, because although this is a very nice looking dashboard, I don't necessarily know what any of these insights are supposed to be telling me, I can click the info button here, and it's going to take me to the Salesforce documentation that is associated with this specific dashboard. So this is our Sales Analytics home right here, and we can drill down into individual dashboards. A lot of them will actually have annotated screenshots, so you can dig in a little bit deeper. I will say it's not super robust in, as far as its definitions are concerned. So what we can also do is, hey, I want to know where this number is coming from. So I can explore this lens, and this was built without code. So I can see that my bar length is sum of percent. Actually, this was totally built with code, but that's fine because I can hop into the code editor and I can actually see the query that was being run. Yep, there's my notification right up here. A lot of these are built clicks, not code. So whenever they're built clicks, not code, we'll be able to very easily explore and make modifications to it. So for example, if you have a graph that's showing opportunities by industry and you would rather see them by state, you can explore them directly from the dashboard, change the grouping, change it from a bar graph to a map, and move, go along with what you were looking for. One dashboard that I really, really like is the stage analysis one. So this is blending two different data sets. This is blending the pipeline trending data set, which is based off of reverse engineering the opportunity history to build retroactive snapshots. Has anybody here ever worked with analytic snapshots or with reporting snapshots? Basically what you do is you create a report. So this is my opportunity pipeline today. And then you set like a weekly cadence, and every week it takes a picture of that report and it stores it as rows in a custom object. And this is really great for seeing like how your pipeline trends over time. Except the problem is your client wants to know like a 13-month rolling history. So they're gonna have to wait 13 months for the data to build up in that object before the insights are valuable. And then 13 months later, they're gonna decide that they need a couple of more fields, but you didn't think to add them in the first place. So they're gonna have to wait up another one. And to Randy's point, they are storage monsters. Well, this reverse engineer, this whole reverse engineering thing, one of the data flows in the standard Sales Analytics app actually constructs a retroactive snapshot based off of opportunity history. This is called the pipeline trending data set. We also have the ability to trend standard reports. So this is very similar to the snapshotting functionality, although I would recommend that needs a record type in the opportunity object. No, record types are optional. In this org, there are record types though, I think. Nope, they're not. It's just a default filter. We could get rid of that one. But so there's not, where was I? Yeah, so there's the ability to trend standard reports in analytics, but this is not really an enterprise feature. This is more for individual users. The problem being that if you deactivate that user, it deletes it. If it's not used for 100 days, it deletes it. If there's too many rows, it deletes it. And it's saved in their private folder by default. So this is more for, I as an end user want to trend my standard Salesforce report in analytics. If you as an organization want to have a trended data set that only lives in analytics. For that, I would recommend either a custom solution, or one of those templates was for snapshotting. So basically you would select a data set from within your org and you would set that up to trend, and you would determine what the interval is. Do I want to get it weekly, monthly, quarterly, etc. And it'll just keep appending on new rows to this. So what this query is doing is it's actually blending that opportunity history data together with your current opportunities. So I can pick a historical time frame. So one business use case for why you would want to do that is, well, hey, maybe we completely redid our sales cycle process and how we look at stages and everything a year ago. Well, I probably don't want to look at data more than a year old. And then I can compare that to opportunities currently. So we can see that our open opportunities tend to be staying in perception analysis a little bit longer than they did historically. I, as a business user, would identify this as a bottleneck in the sales pipeline. And from there, we would want to understand why. So one thing it tells us about, and they didn't create any sample data for this, is the concept of a pushed opportunity. This is when we keep moving the close date forward. So you said it was going to close in July. Now you say it's going to close in August. Now you say it's going to close in September. Well, when I look at that, I say it's never going to close. And you're chasing a pipe dream here. Sales analytics will surface these up, and it will tell you how many times a record has been pushed, because that, and when I see this in client orgs, a lot of times there's anecdotal evidence that, oh, well, this is a special use case. So we're a nonprofit organization. We were pursuing this account in New York City, but due to this change in legislature, it got delayed. And then we realized that the change was actually going to result in us being able to expand the scope in this element and that element. So it got delayed again, etc. And as long as there's an explanation for that, that's fine. But this is a way of boiling those up to the top. So pushed and pulled opportunities is a way of noting that, hey, the close date on this keeps changing. Why? And it starts that conversation. A neglected opportunity is anything that hasn't been touched in 6 days or in 60 days. A stalled opportunity is anything that's been in its current stage longer than the historical average. This is where those bottlenecks start to happen. And what's cool about this is you can see, like, if I drill into perception analysis here, I picked a bad one. Let me see if I can pick one that's actually got data in it. Okay, maybe we can't do that part. Close one. Can I do it on close one? There we go. So this measure right here is very interesting. So when I first demoed this exact dashboard to internal leadership at Huron like 2.5 years ago, we were talking about this very number right here, the probability to close. And we had drilled in on a stage that in our org has a default probability of 75%. And it said that among opportunities that entered that stage, historically, what percentage of them actually closed? And the answer was 76.2. And one of my bosses says to me, so what you're telling me is, if an opportunity in our org hits the stage that's at 75%, historically they've had a 72 or 76.2% chance of closing. We can make hiring decisions based on this. We can staff out in advance based on this. He's like, are you sure this number's right? And I'm like, oh yeah, totally. That night I downloaded every record and checked them all manually in Excel. But think about it. If your data is clean and you're getting that number accurate, you can forecast based on that. And a lot of people think, oh, well, it's the default probability for that stage is 50 and 75% of them are closing. That's great. We're in the money. It's a no. Now you have a staffing problem. You're closing more deals than you can staff. You want the number to be accurate. You don't want it to be low. If it's low, you got people on the bench, you're bleeding out. If it's too high, you're overstaffed or you're understaffed and your people are stretched thin and they're going to get burnt out and they're going to do poor quality work and your clients aren't going to want you to come back. So just being able to how are you going to get that number out of standard Salesforce? You're not. You're going to have to dump it into something else. And there's like 15 different dashboards that this just comes with out of the box. Another really cool one is the leaderboard. Now, if you have chatter profile pics uploaded in your org, that's going to replace this little generic one right here. So if you have highly competitive sales reps who are really bad at putting their data into Salesforce and you want to get them to cooperate a little bit more, what you do is before you show them this dashboard for the first time, you go to LinkedIn, you get all their profile pictures, you upload them as their chatter pics in Salesforce, then you show them this dashboard. wait, why am I 10th on the list? I'm the best seller in this org. It's not what Salesforce says. But I'm closing $1 million. Well, Salesforce says that you're not closing anything. But if it's not in Salesforce, it doesn't happen and you're not getting paid. Suddenly we have clean data. And like the worst is that a lot of sales reps don't want to put in opportunities that their gut tells them are going to lose. And the reason why it's important is so that we can forecast. If we don't know what actually is happening, if you're just pocketing your tickets, and it's like, as a cook, we call it pocketing your tickets. Customer orders a well-done steak. 35 minutes later, you say, where's my steak? I never gave you the ticket, chef. Sorry. Guess that person's getting a hockey puck in another half an hour, and I'm not getting a tip. You got to capture the data, you know, mission critical. This is such a cool dashboard, though. It shows cumulative opportunity amount over time, and specifically in the context of closed ones. And a lot of times people see this ... after today, and they think, is that a prediction? No, it's just a UI trick. We can put in a reference line. We set that reference line equal to today, and then everything to the right is a dot. But we do actually have, even without Einstein Discovery, we do have a little bit of predictive capabilities out of the box. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this one working, but we're going to YOLO it. So I'm going to build a dashboard right now. And I never build pretty dashboards under these sort of circumstances. I'm going to take way too long, you know, just nitpicking over like the little details and the coloring. So I just say heck with it, and I make ugly dashboards because it's more about demonstrating the concept. So let's say that I'm going to create a query, and it's going to be my opportunities, and I only want to see my wins. So I'm going to navigate over to the filters, and I'm going to click on 1 equals yes. And so now I'm only looking at my wins, and I want to group them over time. And I want this to be a timeline, because timelines are pretty. So now we got a timeline. And I don't want count of rows, I want sum of amount. So now this is my opportunity amount over time. Well, what is this going to look like after this month? Let's have a look. And we're going to let the predictive side of things do it. Now again, this is the only predictive capability that does not require Analytics Plus licenses. This is time series. So I click on the plus here, and I'm going to add a formula. This takes me into compare table mode. Compare table mode allows you to add all sorts of awesome calculated columns without writing a single bit of code. So let's take a look at one of those calculations that we can do. So for example, we can do a period over period, and we can just say, what's our percentage change month over month? And I can just hit apply. And now I actually see the deltas month over month. Again, how are you going to do this in standard Salesforce? You're going to use the parent group val function in a report, and that's going to be a nightmare in and of itself. And then if you have any month where there is no data, it's going to have a gap. So it's going to think that if you don't do any business, if you don't have any closed won opportunities in February and you go like January to March, it's going to look at from March to February for that delta. And it's just a nightmare. Trying to get this sort of period over period analysis with standard reports, it's just not there. But we'll get rid of this one. And we're going to change it. How do I delete it without? Oh yeah, I can just do this. And these are what are called windowing functions. And in addition to being able to use some of the predefined ones, we can actually extend this functionality really, really far with just a little bit of code. So I'm going to do time series. And what time series basically does is it looks at trends in your data, and it will add fake rows into the future based on what it thinks is going to happen. And this is based on a well-respected algorithm that I totally can't remember the name of, but it's in their documentation. I always think it's got winter in it, but I think it's like, I don't know. It can detect automatically whether or not you have seasonality. So for example, if you're a lemonade stand, I don't think December is going to be a good month for you in the Northern Hemisphere. But it'll detect what your seasonality is, either monthly, quarterly. That's really all it's configured to handle. I don't really know what these two things do. Not gonna lie, I don't know everything about this product. And then ignore last is the idea that I probably want to ignore my current month because it might not be complete, and that incomplete month at the end where it drops off is going to skew the data. So I'm going to check the ignore last. And then prediction points, this has something to do with the fuzziness of its accuracy. Basically, if it's not, if there are rows that it wants to insert that it's less confident about, this is like a threshold for when it'll say, you know, keep it or dump it. But you know, 10th grade math, don't know much about algorithms. So now I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. And I should just be able to close out of this, go back to chart mode. And this is what it predicts is going to happen. So now I could apply individual filters to these columns separately. So I actually have to go back to the edit. So what I would do is for this second column, I actually want to filter this one independently. So nope, I got to go table mode, compare table mode. I don't do this one very often. Most of my clients don't want to know predictions about what might happen. They're like, you know, that's what fortune cookies are for. They only deal in hard facts. So time series, not really their bag. There's some excellent blog posts from Ricky at salesforceblogger.com exactly about how to do this. Apparently lemonade does sell in South Texas in the winter. So with compare tables, we also have the ability to filter our different columns independently. So if I wanted to do a year over year, I could have one column that's filtered to last year, one column that's filtered to this year, and then I could see their two different lines together on the same chart. So now I'm going to, oh, I can't filter it because it's a calculated column. That's why I can't do it. But we're just going to do this the fast way. So I go into my formatting options because I actually want to see these together. Let's see, and I'm going to go to time series, and I'm going to change from small multiples to dual axis, or nope, I want single axis. There we go. So now both of these numbers are actually on the same axis, and this is where it predicts that we're going to be going up and up and up. And yes, this line is way too straight and flat for me to find it believable, but you know, that's what you get. It's trailhead data. So now, let's talk about another really awesome, really easy thing that you totally can't do with standard Salesforce reports. Click over here, slide down here, and wait for it. US states. There we go. Who wants to see this as a standard dashboard component? Wouldn't that be great? Or how about this? The global filter widget, which, by the way, if you really like building standard dashboards in Salesforce, never come to analytics and use this feature, because you will not be able to go back to the standard dashboard builder without ripping your hair out. And this is why. The global filter widget. So first, I'm going to click on this guy, and I'm going to choose a field off of opportunity. We're going to say account type. That one looks groovy. And I want to go to all, I want it to display all filters, manage global filters. Now we're going to add maybe stage. And maybe we'll add one for forecast category. Nah, it's kind of duplicative of stage, don't you think? Let's put a date field on there, actually. I like the date pickers on this. So now we've got to make a couple of little tweaks to this guy. We want to see 3 filters per row. And hey, I only want to see my partner accounts. Why is this not this easy in standard dashboards? I didn't have to hard code a list of every possible combination I'd ever want to see. I'm not limited to 50 values. I can just have actual filters that work. So if you actually have multiple data sets on this, for example, let's say I have a data set of cases, and I also want to see cases and the opportunities at the same time. So this would be 2 different custom report types. How are those filters possibly going to work together? Well, we can filter on values that are common to both. So what we can do here is bring up our data set of, that's not the data set I wanted, that's cards, case. Yeah, I saw a C and I was like, so let's just grab random table, values table. These are all my cases. So I'd also like this filter to apply. Now the problem is though that although this has the account type field, it's right there in the second column. These two data sets are not connected. They are not aware of each other. So when I filter to partner, I still have plenty of customers in my case data set. Now, as recently as 2 years ago, we needed to write code to be able to do this, and we can still use code to do it, to actually manually pass values back and forth between our two different lenses. But we don't have to do it with code anymore, which, I used to like the challenge, but I also like hitting the easy button too. So I'm going to use what's called connected data sources, and this allows me to call out columns that are common within both data sets. And before you think I can just say, oh, account ID and account ID, and every single field is going to merge up, it's not like that. You do have to explicitly call out every field that you want this to apply to. But all I do is I hit new connection, and we're going to say type, and from data source 1, I'm going to say type, and data source 2 is also type, but this time it's on case. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save and close this out and go back to view. There we go. I didn't have to write any joins. There's no complex code there. I mean, if you want to see the code, I just hit Control E. Here's all the code. Any developers out there, you ever see a faster way to get to your code editor than this? And it's all just right there. I can go straight to, so for example, right here, this is my map. This is my measure is count of rows. My grouping is account billing state. If I wanted to change that, I could do it through the code, get to some field that I don't have exposed in the UI. It's just right there. And the best part is, if you don't like code, you don't have to do it. A couple of other really cool features that came to the product in recent releases. One of them is called the Interaction Builder. So we have this concept called bindings. It's the Mad Libs of analytics. It allows us to pass values from one query, like the output of one query, and use it as parameters to modify another one. That's how those color-coded indicators are red or green, because they were built prior to UI-based conditional formatting. But we used to do this with what was called bindings, and the Mad Libs of analytics. Now we have what's called the Interaction Builder, and this is a tool that bridges the gap between clicks and code. So instead of having to sort through 1,500 lines of dashboard code to figure out where it is, well, right here, this is just the one that I clicked on. I wanted to be on the map, actually, my bad. Advanced Editor, and right here I can see the map type. It's using an Alberts US projection. We're looking at account billing state, and the step that it's derived from is account billing state 1. So if I wanted to modify this with the properties of another query, so for example, I wanted to say, like, if this query is viewing billing state, I want to view the US state map. If this one is set to country, I want to view map of the world. Now we would just select which query we want, and then we would choose whether we want cells, rows, or columns. I'll say column, and we'll just take this annual revenue because I just want to show that it's writing the code that I need to insert for me. And I would just copy that and stick it into whatever property I want. And now I don't have to actually worry about silly syntax errors breaking my day. We've only got about 10 minutes left. I could keep going for hours and hours, but I think now's a really good time to pause for questions. One last feature. This one's brand new, just came out in the last release. I did want to also show the blended data UI, which allows me to do, like, I can bring cases and opportunities into a single visualization together. That one just came out in the last release. Check out my channel for release coverage if you want to see more of that stuff. That particular video is called Pete Breaks Everything. Sorry, Norman, I don't have any Rickrolls prepared. I'm sorry. Yes, I do tend to Rickroll people. Salesforce Direct, this allows us to create any object in Salesforce live without having to build an ETL script to bring it in. It needs a little bit more work, but it's brand new, and we didn't have it before at all. So if you need to augment your dashboards with real-time data, you can do that. You can also embed dashboards everywhere, filter them in the context of the currently logged in user, filter them to the context of the account. There's saved views. There's, like, I barely chipped the surface, and we're 50 minutes in. Yeah, let's roll the Q&A. I've seen the chat going at a mile a minute, but I haven't really been following any of it.
I think there was one question in particular that came out regarding, hang on one second. I'll read it to you. It was sent to me privately. Sometimes I get and the person who asked it, you can feel free to elaborate. Sometimes I get a request to make a change in the Sales Analytics app, but I cannot edit the query because it contains bindings. I'm working on getting better at coding, but sometimes this really throws me through a loop. Any suggestions?
Yeah. So let's look at an example of that would be on our sales performance. So technically, this visualization right here is built without code because they have the widget actions disabled right now. I just have to do this, show explore. So technically, this is built without code because when I explore it, I can still change the groupings and such. I'm not locked out. But the problem is that it's using a binding. And what that is right here, when I toggle between product family and product name, there's a binding that basically says, I want to group by the value that is coming from this. So what I will typically do is I will temporarily remove the binding. And it is just a real pain. A lot of this, when you're building from scratch, you try to do your bindings last. Make sure that the chart is stable, that the query of the chart is stable before you start adding bindings to it. But with Sales Analytics, it's not something that you have a choice about. It's already built. So what I would then do is I would go to query and I would say, oh, come on. I can see that this is from the query KPI main. I'm going to copy that to my clipboard, Control E, Control F, paste it into there. Now I'm at the KPI main. Oh no, this one is SACWL. Why? This doesn't need custom code at all. And what I would do is I would remove the binding and I would replace it with a placeholder value. So for example, this is probably going to crash because I don't know if that's the name of the field or not. I know industry's on here. And I would do this for all the bindings in the step. And then that would allow me to edit it again through the UI if you remove the bindings. And as predicted, it just breaks. Single quotes. I missed the single quotes. So once I remove all of the ta-da! So once I remove all of the bindings from the from that particular step, you would then be able to actually edit it. But you know, your other option is just edit it through code. You can also, if you explore it, you can make the changes you want, and then you have kind of some sample code to copy pasta back over to the dashboard. Let's see. Yes. So one of the questions is, can we embed Salesforce into core? We actually have the ability to just add that as an app tab. It might even be there. Analytics. How's this? Takes up almost virtually the same real estate. This way your users don't have to log into Analytic Studio. A lot of questions about Tableau. My short answer on that, in my opinion, the acquisition was largely a business decision, and you can hear this in the difference in messaging between the acquisition of MuleSoft and the acquisition of Tableau, where with MuleSoft, within days, they're talking about integration cloud, whereas with Tableau, they're saying, no, everything's going to remain separate. That said, you don't spend that much money on something and not immediately start thinking about integrations. We are a ways off from seeing any technological impact of this, but the product team is very eager to see what they can do now that both are under the same roof. And if you want, feel free to reach out to me because I have a longer version of that rant. Do we have any processing delays when joining objects or pulling reports out? So the data flows do have to be scheduled and ran because again, this is not in Salesforce. You can typically get up to like, if you're looking at less than 10 or 20 million rows, you can schedule your data flow at an hourly frequency. The joins aren't particularly what adds a lot of weight to it. I find that creating calculated date fields tends to add the most bulk. I have a data flow that's processing 600 million rows of external data and joining them with 300,000 account records in Salesforce. That takes about 4 hours to run. Standard sales analytics, most of the time that I'm waiting for it to run is you're just waiting in the queue. For each node gets queued up separately, and it, you know, you kind of just have to wait your turn. How many filters can you have on a dashboard? All of them. You want to have 500 filters on a dashboard? Good luck interacting with it, but there's no system limitation. Let's see. I'm going to show a couple of other things that I wanted to show too. By the way, we want to just talk about art of the possible. Somebody shout out a number between 1 and 500. 78. So this is an Einstein Analytics dashboard using real-time SQL queries at the dashboard level. On the right here, this is just a flow. There's no code involved. Random number generator, it's fun. There's a video on my channel for how to install this into any analytics enabled dashboard. Should we hit or should we stay? We've only got 13, so I think we're gonna hit. And it looks like that might have been a bad idea. We lost 78. Good thing it's all fake money. Then we also have this guy. So right now I've got, I'm playing as red. I've got 26 troops in Central America. I see blue has 12 troops in Venezuela. So this is a custom GeoJSON map that I built the hard way. If you're looking for GeoJSON based off of like I want New York City by zip code, there are common repositories that you can download that from. Go to the analytics community group and search for GeoJSON, and there's a massive thread with people posting links that's been going on for like well over a year now. But this flow brings up all the available attacks that I have. So Central America versus blue in Venezuela, 25 to 12, go ahead and hit next. Auto attack up to 10 times, go ahead and hit next. And looks like I won, so I'm gonna take 10 guys with me, and I go ahead and hit next. And this was before I figured out how to make the flow update the dashboard. Now you had to click to interact with it. But when I click to zoom into South America, boom, red has conquered Venezuela. Now this is the prettiest view, but the problem is I have a little bit of trouble seeing what the numbers are. So Lucas, reach out to me offline and I will give you all the tips that I have, but I would say tips for learning SQL for non-coders. Check out SQL Basics on my channel. It's the ones with the yellow title cards. I got a 6-part series on it. So the problem with this visualization though is now I can see all the numbers pretty clearly, but I can't tell who's who. This is the most informative and insightful because it has the exact number for all territories with the color, but it's not very aesthetically pleasing, and that's something we always have to balance. And then last but not least, just the labels. This one's actually just a screenshot. It's not even a dashboard. Then where is it? Oh, in my secret incognito tab over here. Because I'm also on NA111 in this org, which is the same as the one I was demoing out of initially, so that's why I had to incognito it, and I really hope this is the right thing. Yeah, this one's a work in progress. It's going to be a while before this is done, so nobody get their hopes up. But this is Tetris. The difference between SQL and SQL. SQL is Salesforce Analytics Query Language. It is loosely based off of Apache Pig Latin. It was built by multiple teams operating in silos and therefore has a whole lot of janky inconsistencies, but this is my language and I love it very dearly. How are you passing dynamic dashboard values from the flow to the dashboard? I'm not. I'm modifying data, and the dashboard is using SQL queries to query live Salesforce data. So as the data changes, the dashboard is presenting a new value. In the case of Blackjack, I'm using a trick on the flow that the flow is actually dead ending after every action. So basically I show a screen, then I do DML, and the flow ends. This forces a page refresh. It's technically a bug exploit. And then when the flow resumes, it figures out based on the data where it left off, so it shows the user the correct things. Any other questions?
I think we're good. Pete, this is freaking awesome. From my perspective, I do not have a hard stop right now. So if anyone has any other questions, and if Pete, you can stay on. But
I'll go another 30 minutes if there's an appetite for it.
So Anshul just asked a question in the chat. Can we use Sockle in Einstein? That means what? I'm confused.
Sockle and Social. I forget what Social stands for. That's more of a dev thing, not really a dev. Sockle is Salesforce Object Query Language. This is like, so the standard report builder, I refer to it as a SQL query visualization wizard. select ID from account, group by industry, order by number of employees descending. And there's my chart. Analytics uses SACWL. And let's see if I can get this dashboard to do its thing. So this is based off of SOQL queries. So a feature that was added to analytics a number of releases ago was the ability, the ability to embed SOQL queries directly into Salesforce or into Analytics Dashboards. So if I hit Control E right here, this is my SOQL step, and it literally is taking SOQL syntax. So I'm saying select row, column, color from pixel where name not equal to Y, group by row and column. And that's all there is to it. With Blackjack, I'm also using a lot of different bindings. So one problem that I have with Blackjack is that you could have up to 11 cards in your hand at a single time. And so there would be a scroll bar, because with Blackjack, that's actually a data table. So where did Blackjack go? Hello, Blackjack. Where did I have too many tabs? One of these is Blackjack. It's in this org though, so I'm just going to navigate to it. So one of the problems that I have with Blackjack, this is a values table. That's all it is. And just like in the old days of reports, anybody remember the traffic lights? It was an image, it was a formula field that would return an image. If it's good, it's green. If it's bad, it's red. And very similarly, we have the ability to display images in tables. So what I did for this guy, Analytic Studio, Blackjack, and again, if you want to see the code under the hood, you just install the package. It's bit.ly/let's play Blackjack. Let's see. To Life is Awesome, and thank you for subscribing the other day. I did see that. It's not a question about how long it's going to take. It's a question of like how stubbornly obsessed are you. That's going to directly determine how long it'll take to become an expert. You could learn this stuff as fast as you need to. For me, I'm stubborn, and I just keep smacking my head on the wall until it's a door. And that's how I learned it. I wasn't going to let not understanding the code be a blocker to getting to where I wanted to be. That's really all there was. And as somebody who wasted a huge chunk of his life, when I finally had a chance to do something, I hit the ground running and I never looked back. So right here, this is an example of a binding as a filter. So the hand object stores a record that tells us all the different cards that we have. I only want to be looking at the most recent hand with my dashboard. So I have a different query that says, find the one with the highest auto number. And then I'm using a binding to pass that in as a filter. There's a different one here. So looking at this, again, this is just a table. And if I just change the theme, now you can see all the column headers and everything. This is what we're actually looking at under the hood. And so it's just pointed to a static resource that contains a zip file of the card images. And if you can basically tell the column. So right here, I go to my column properties and I can just say, that's the wrong one, column properties. I pick a column and I choose whether to show it as text or an image. But if I flip it to text, we can see that this is, my org's relative URL / resources / backing. And that's just done with a formula field that I use, like $API something or other, that gives you like the enterprise services URL. I then use substring to strip out the stuff I don't need. And then I use a formula from the name of the card to put the right value at the end. It finds the image in the static resource, and you guys see a game of cards when behind the scenes it's actually a table. But because you could theoretically have up to 11 cards in your hand, if you had 4 aces, 4 twos, and 3 threes, that table normally has a scroll bar. So what I'm actually doing is I do a different query that says, well, how many cards do I have? And then I take the result of that and I bind it into my select clause. So we're actually only querying the columns that will have data in them. So we never see a scroll bar unless it's actually warranted. I'm kind of a unique case also. So if you're smacking your head on the wall and you're not making it to success, I would say, yeah, just keep going at it. I've been like obsessing over this tech for Salesforce in general for 5 years now. It doesn't come instantly. It doesn't come easily. I will say that consultants, we tend to learn a little bit faster than non-consultants, because we go to so many different clients and so many different orgs. We're just exposed to a huge variety of it. If you work for a Salesforce customer, you're going to be in the same org every day, and you're only going to be using those offerings. So like, maybe you never touch Marketing Cloud because your company doesn't use Marketing Cloud. Well, you know, I've worked with hundreds of clients. A lot of them do have Marketing Cloud. I somehow still haven't really messed with Marketing Cloud, so it's probably a bad example. Yes, put on the helmet, look for the wall. See, one of my pain points of standard reports is the limit of 4 variables in a matrix report. Ooh, the answer is 1. You can currently only show 1 measure in a pivot in Einstein Analytics, although that is expected to increase this release. But yeah, pivots are not the best. Other sources besides Trailhead to learn Einstein Analytics. Well, first there's this. So just little shameless self-promotion. And yes, I play a lot of Minecraft, and I like Steven Universe and cat videos. No shame. So this is my channel, Let's Play Salesforce. You know, it's the name is like, you know, Salesforce is my favorite video game. So that's why it's called Let's Play Salesforce. I got a ton of content right here. It just keeps going. The yellow ones, those were the Sackville basics. Then I would also recommend salesforceblogger.com. This is Ricky. She's based out of London, and she used to be with a partner company, and now she's part of the ACE team, Analytics Center of Excellence, with Salesforce themselves. And for sheer volume of content, no one in the world holds a candle to how many blog posts she has on analytics. And if you go back far enough, she used to do a lot on Pardot as well. When are we going to have Let's Play Salesforce t-shirts and stickers? So hold that thought for 1 second.
I had to ask.
He's like going through cardboard boxes now, looking for it.
I'm literally a walking branding violation here, because this is not the correct color for a Salesforce cloud. Now, here's the problem with this. I wanted to have a contest. I was going to put some really challenging analytics trivia on my channel in a video with my email address, and then let people respond and give out the prizes. But I'm an idiot, and I didn't think things through. And I bought $300 worth of t-shirts before I did analytics on my own analytics, and realized that, you know, for example, only 40% of my subscribers are in the US. How am I supposed to get you your shirt? And if everybody can't play, nobody can play. So that's why. Now, one thing that is in consideration, and I'm actually looking for a little bit of pro bono work from an artist on this. There's a local charity here. Well, they're not local, but they have a chapter here. They're called Journey's End. They help refugees start new lives. And I've actually made a lot of friends through their organization, because we used to work closely with them at the restaurant I used to be at. Great story about my buddy Saw, who was, he was a Karen refugee, and, you know, really wild guy. Helped him learn English. He saved up enough money that he brought his two daughters here from a refugee camp in Thailand. And all because of Journey's End. So I wanted to do something to help them. What I would love to have is a swag store, because we have a lot of little memes like, you know, keep calm and spam the refresh button, and just a lot of like various, you know, hashtag data tribe kind of puns that I would love to put on t-shirts and coffee cups and everything, and share all the profits with Journey's End. So if anybody out there is artistically inclined and wants to help me with some of the designs for that, please reach out. Actually, this one will probably be on David's YouTube channel, but I don't see any reason not to cross-post it.
Yeah, we totally can. So yeah, I put it in the chat a couple of times. The recording from this video, I'm going to put on YouTube. I can certainly give it to Pete to put on his channel. And I will be, for everyone who RSVP to this event, I have your email addresses. I will be emailing you the link to that particular YouTube recording.
Ella, regarding the question of abstract art, I have kind of I can draw you stick figure sketches of what we're looking for. I can send them over to you. And if you can make something that works for that, we'll see. But hit me up at Let's Play.
Conversation's going in every direction. It's all good.
No, Data Tribe was like, I imagined stick figures, but like, one's got a bar graph and, for a body, and one has like a pie chart for a shield, and then the mountain in the back is like, the number going up kind of graph for hashtag Data Tribe.
That can work.
Yeah. I actually, there's a horror story about the artist that I paid to do that and how terribly sideways that went. I shared it with David, but it's not the most appropriate story, so we're going to skip that.
Don't want to get that on recording and possible problems.
I'm going to show one more feature, because it looks like the questions are dwindling down a little bit. But I do want to show one more really killer feature, and then we'll probably call it a wrap.
Okay.
So as a sales leader here, whenever I want to view the dashboard, not edit it. Whenever I come to this dashboard, I always need to filter it to the context of what I need. And I always, looking at the quarter is too much for me. I want to look at the month, so I have to like come down here and pick the current month. And then I only want to look at the reps that are on my team. So I pick like just the reps that are on my team. And I have to do this every time. And I actually run 2 different teams, so I have to do it twice, and it's really annoying. Why can't I just, have this as my golden standard? Well, you can't. It's called Save Views. So right here, I'm going to click this drop down. I'm going to hit Save View. I'm going to name it State of the Union, and optionally, I can make it my default. This allows us to have single dashboards that are multi-purpose across teams. And every user can create up to 10 or 20 save views within their dashboard. And it's per user. Admins can't set it up for you, but it's a super cool feature, another great differentiator. Question from Pedro: if I add a dashboard to a record page, can I still do data bindings and SQL or have multiple tabs? Absolutely. Risk is embedded into a record page. This is just the player record. So here's my details for how many cards they have, et cetera, et cetera. And this is just embedded on the page. Now, I'm not doing any fancy filtration on this or anything, but we can pass values from the record to the dashboard so it has context. A great example would be, if I'm in health insurance and a patient calls in, I can have on their account page, I can have a dashboard of telling me all the different times they've called in, all the different services we've rendered for them, and it's going to be filtered in the context of that patient so I can quickly give them insights without having to traverse across 50 different related records to that patient. So it has zero impact on faceting. There's no negative impacts whatsoever. Everything still just works. But you cannot hit Control E from the, you don't have the ability to edit the dashboard from the page. So the other question is, do you still have to press Control E and get bindings from the record page, etc.? Okay, so a little bit of a distinction here. So when we pull values from the record that we're embedded on, that's not done through bindings. That's just called an embedded filter. Dashboards that are embedded don't have edit mode from the record. You have to go into Analytic Studio to actually edit the dashboard. But we used to have to do it with a filter string, but now we can just do this clicks not code. We basically just do something like, compare a field on the data set to a field. We compare a field that's on the data set to a field that's on the object. And then we just, set the values like that. So for example, color equals, and we'll say, I'm just randomly grabbing stuff here. And it basically will write the snippet out for us. So then we can still modify it if we need to make tweaks, but this is the actual JSON filter that would come through, and this will pull properties from the record and apply that as filters onto the dashboard. All right.
Awesome. Pete,
Cool
thanks
stuff.
so much for sharing your expertise. This has been very, very cool. Just even looking at the thread of the chats that have been coming in, you've blown people's minds in
I feel like
a
I want
very
to
good way.
copy because I'm not gonna. I missed out on like a ton of it. Wow, there is a ton in the chat here.
There's a lot. You want to
Just
address some of it?
copying it from the clipboard. No, and I got it. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you. Pete, thanks so much. Everyone who joined, thank you. I'm really glad. I should rephrase that. Both of us, Pete and I, are really glad that during this crazy time that all of us are living through, that we're able to get together and share some best practices and get people excited about some of the Salesforce functionality, and really up your own game, because it's helping all of us stay focused on things that are productive and helpful to each other while the rest of the world around us is kind of nutty. So thank you all. Pete, thanks again.
Yep, and Data Tribe Coffee Hour next week. It's just open office hours for anybody to ask questions, and we're going to have we always have a couple of presenters. I'm not positive what it's going to be this time around, but that's going to be next, I think it's next Thursday from 5 to 6:30 Eastern. I'm not positive, but if you go to bit.ly/Data Tribe Coffee, which I will put in the chat, you can register for that.
You know what, Pete? You could also give me the link so that when I send out the email to everyone with the link to the YouTube video, I can put it in there, and I could also put it in the description on YouTube too.
Will do.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great night. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Stay safe. Wash your hands.